Okay, let's talk about managing royalties. I'm Scott Orr, and I'm the host of the podcast Other Record Labels. And today, as part of a bigger series, we're talking about 31 tips to help you run a record label, help you to start a record label. And you can get all of these tips together at otherrecordlabels.com/checklist. And it's a checklist I put together of all these things to help you start a record label. But let's talk about managing royalties. This is an awkward conversation. It's going to be an awkward conversation with you, with the artist. It's a really tough one to talk about, and it's something that you probably won't find a lot of information about on the internet, although we've had some labels who have talked openly about their percentage rates and stuff. So let's talk about this. First of all, you want to plan when you're going to pay your artists, and this is something you're going to want to talk about them, either put it in the contract or in your email handshake agreement with them, but let them know when they're going to get paid: monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly. Or maybe you could say twice a year, or 3 times a year, I'm going to open up all the accounts and, print everything off and send you a statement. And that might be twice in the first half of the year, but once in the back half of the year. But you want to pick something. Monthly is really tough. I mean, unless you're making tons of money, monthly is really tough. Because depending on how many artists you have, that's crunching a lot of numbers. So quarterly is something really good, or bi-monthly, which means every other month. But quarterly is probably something that's pretty fair. Now, the second questions you're going to want to ask is, what percentage should you pay them? Now, here's what's interesting. I'll tell you, I started my label 10 years ago, and I settled on the idea of 65% royalty, meaning I kept 35% for the label, and the artist got 65%. And I thought that was being generous. I thought that was giving more. And in fact, major labels, it's like the inverse, where labels keep like 80 or 90%. And so I thought giving the artist 65% was great. Now, it's been fine. I've toyed with the idea of dropping it down to 60-40, but it's been fine. A lot of the labels I talk to do 50-50 splits, and we're talking about some pretty decent sized labels that you would know and respect. I mean, you can even go back and listen to the episodes. People talk about it. And then a lot of kind of smaller but yet successful indie labels do a 50-50 split. I feel like if I were starting my label today, I would do a 50-50 split. But remember, that means that you got to work just as much as the artists are working. And the artists have put a lot of work in songwriting and recording and mastering, probably put a lot of money into it, and creating the aesthetic and the vibe around their band and playing shows. So they're really putting in the effort, and you need to make sure that you're matching that effort and hopefully exceeding that effort as well to sell the record. And so 50-50 is great. Everyone has skin in the game. But you know what? You can do whatever you and the artist agree on. And if you want to be a little bit more generous and give them a bigger piece of the pie, I think that's a cool thing to do. Make sure to remember to deduct expenses. So if you make, let's use easy numbers here. If you make $100 from Spotify, if Spotify pays you $100 for an artist's single that they just released, you're not going to get that for like 3 or 4 months, by the way. Spotify lags a lot with their payments. But when you do get the $100, let's say it cost you in like distributing fees like CD Baby or DistroKid or whatever, it cost you like $30 to get that album up. And let's say you're splitting the proceeds with the artist 50-50. So $100 you make, but you deduct $30 expenses, that leaves you with $70. You split it, so $35 for the artist and $35 for you. So don't forget about expenses, because I think in most cases, unless it's only a label expense, if it's specifically for the artist, then that needs to be deducted before you pay royalties, if that's how you have things set up. And also, those are things that you need to let the artist know about, that these expenses are going to come off of their royalties, or the shared pot. And the final thing is, keep an ongoing shared document that you share with the artist. So I have been doing this for a couple years. I used to keep a spreadsheet on my computer, and then I would send them a statement. Now I have this ongoing, I don't update it as often as I should, but I have this ongoing Google Sheets that they have access to, that I have access to. So at any time they can log in and see how much I owe them, or how much expenses have been incurred, or that kind of thing. So you can set that up really nice, and it's a live document. You can make it so they can't edit it, but they can view it. That's probably a good thing. And then you can try to update that as often as you want. And if it's quarterly, update it quarterly, or you can sneak in there every couple of weeks when you have time and update it so they can see, hey, my label owes me $30. I should be getting that at the end of this quarter. Or, here's all my sales that happened. We talked to the label one time. It says that they file royalty reports even when the artist isn't owed any money. And I admire that. I should do that. Because that's a really good thing to keep the artist not in the dark. So I hope you found this helpful. And if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below or email me podcast@otherrecordlabels.com and get this and all of the tips we're doing on how to start a record label at otherrecordlabels.com/checklist. Thanks for watching.